Did everybody get my email either last night or did I forward it to you if you weren't in class yet?
Yeah,
Everybody
I got the email, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then did everybody get Hangouts and Google Drive set up?
The Hangouts, yeah, I got it.
Okay. Now, Hangouts, you guys can get that. Like, I'd like you to have it on your phone if you don't care with notifications. It's basically like a text app, but also you can do video calls. So, like, we're going to do a few group quizzes over the summer. And so when you guys do group quizzes, you'll have a separate Hangout for your group. And what I'd like you to do is meet like this over, you know what, I'm going to mute all you guys just because I'm getting some feedback. But if you do have questions, just unmute yourself. That's completely fine. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and mute you for now. But yeah, we'll talk about this all kind of as we go through everything. But so when you guys do group quizzes, you'll have a group on that Hangouts app, and you can be texting each other and stuff, even outside of the group quizzes. But I'd like you to be meeting on the app like this. I think you guys, unless you work for the university, you can't set up your own Zoom meetings, but you can set up Google Hangouts, which is basically like this. I think it has like you don't have a whiteboard, but like we never use the whiteboard anyway. So like other than that, it's basically the same. And so you can work together on quizzes. And if you want to work on the homework and stuff together, you can, but there are a few group quizzes where you have to work together. And so the Hangouts is partly for that. But then you could also message me. That's a lot quicker than email for me. That's a lot easier if you can message me on Hangouts. So anyway, so that we'll use a good bit. And then I'll have that you should have gotten this morning, or I guess maybe an hour ago, a group message that's the whole class. And so I'll use that for some announcements. So like if office hours have to switch or, whatever, if there's last minute stuff, I'll put a lot of stuff through there rather than email. So if you can get Hangouts like on your phone where you have notifications coming in, if not, okay, but please check it, at least once a day, probably several times a day. But you can get it on your phone, you can get it on your tablet. It's free on basically everything. Or you can go on the internet and go to hangouts.google.com and you just log in with your mix to that, and you can get it on just like any web browser. Any questions about that? And like I said, just unmute yourself anytime, ask a question if you have it. But everybody does have Hangouts. At least everybody's gotten the message from me. Is that right? We've messaged each other. Okay, cool. Okay, so then let's kind of start. Got 7 of us in here, I think. So, okay. Like I said, before we start, does anybody have any questions? And I'll kind of go through syllabus and kind of stuff about the summer and just kind of overview of the class. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. There's always a delay the first time I share my iPad for whatever reason. So give it a second here. And it should go through. Man, more of a delay than usual. There it goes. All right. So, yeah, so I just wanted to talk to you guys about a bunch of stuff kind of related to the class getting started. So obviously the class is online and it's a summer class. Now, there are several big things about that. The fact that it's online means that you guys have to motivate yourself a lot. Okay, so, man, if I can type, then that'll be easier. But you have to motivate yourself. So I will do my best to stay on you and say, hey, this is when everything is due. This is what you need to be doing today. Please come to office hours if you need help. I'll be on you a good bit through Hangouts. And if I have to, I'll email you. So I'll be doing that. But basically, it's going to come down to you staying on top of the schedule. And so because it's online, there's less, obviously we don't see each other every day unless you're coming to office hours, but you have to motivate yourself to do that. And so please make sure you're staying on top of stuff. When you do homework, I provide solutions to almost everything. That's good and bad. So I think it's good. Obviously I think it's good or I wouldn't do it for you. It takes a lot of work for me to make solutions and give them to you guys, but I think it helps you more than it hurts. The drawback of that is that you could become too dependent on that. So like if you have a homework assignment, a lot of times you're going to get 100 on the homework because you had all the answers. So I'm just going to check that you did it. Does that make sense? So like, I'm going to make sure you did it. And if you just copied my solutions, okay, your call, but then, you get your homework points, but then by the test, you're going to have no idea what's going on. Does that make sense? So you have to be kind of self-disciplined enough to use the solutions. Now, I don't give you solutions to everything, but pretty much you're going to have solutions to just about everything. So, if you're going to have to be disciplined enough to make sure you actually know how to do the problem and that you didn't just replicate what I did and hand it in without understanding what's going on. Does that make sense? Okay, so the online stuff especially means that those two things are a little bit different from a face-to-face class, in that you have to be a lot more motivated to stay on top of stuff. And that, during the year, I provide solutions to a normal class anyway, but a lot of times I'll do it after you hand it in. So maybe you hand something in on Tuesday, then I give you the solutions on Wednesday or something, just to kind of keep you on top of stuff. That's less true in the summer, and that's less true even more so online. You basically just have everything. And so you just have to make sure you really understand that. Does that, any questions about that? Okay. And then means that the pace is really fast. So because it's in the summer, we're confined to 6 weeks. In 6 weeks, we have to cover a class that is considered fast during the year. And so normally in 15 weeks, 156 seems very fast. And not, obviously you could have had 155, or you could have had 153, 154, but especially if you're used to 153, 154, you're very well prepared for the material. But sometimes the pace of that class is much, much slower, especially versus summer 156. Not trying to scare you guys, but it just as a heads up, it moves really, really fast. It would move really fast during the year, but even more so during the summer. So the way it's set up is every day, is about 2.5 normal days. And so in a class that normally during the year meets 4 days a week for an hour, if it was meeting face-to-face in the summer, we would be meeting 2 hours every single day. And then you would have 2 or more hours of homework every single night. And I know that kind of sounds like it sucks, and I am trying to scare you a bit. It's because I just finished teaching 156, and the way that class worked is people either did really well or bombed it completely. Does that make sense? There was very little in between, and people who did really well were working all the time. And unfortunately, that's what it takes in order to do well in this class. If we were meeting every day, we would have 2 hours basically of lecture every day. And then you'd have, like I said, 2 or more hours of homework every night, because we have to stay up. We have to cover everything. Almost everybody in Calc 2 has to go take Calc 3. If they're not going to take Calc 3, they're in a major that requires this. Most people don't take Calc 2 just for fun. I mean, if you are, great. I'm glad you're here. But I think most of you need to know the material for something coming up. And so we have to cover everything in 6 weeks. So that means it's really, really fast. That means a lot of times, you'll see stuff on the schedule where, okay, the first assignment, there'll be 2 or 3 assignments listed. For the second assignment, you need to actually not only have watched the first assignment, but you need to be really good at the first assignment in order to do the second assignment. So a lot of times assignment 1 might in a normal semester be on Monday. You would be expected to go home, practice that, really process it, not just watch the lecture, really process it, and then do assignment 2. Does that make sense? And so that's going to happen a lot in the summer where you're going to have to kind of force yourself to do that. I'll try to remind you, and I'll say, you need to be really good at this first assignment before you do the second assignment. So maybe do some homework in between. But like I said, you kind of have to do that yourself because it's a summer class. And so, like I said, I'll remind you, I'm happy to help you, but it is an incredible amount of work. And so just kind of be prepared for that. It's obviously, you guys are all adults. It's up to you what you want to take and what you want to take on at this time. But, if you're taking Calc 2 in a 6-week session, it's probably not the best time to also be enrolled in chemistry and physics. Does that make sense? It's just, that would be a lot of work. It's, it would also be difficult to do this with a 12-hour-a-day job or something like that. So, there are no requirements not to do that stuff. You guys certainly can, but I'm just trying to be upfront about the fact that this class is a ton of work. And I do know you have other commitments, but it's a lot of work in this class. So not to scare you, but just to be upfront about that, to be realistic, to pass the class, you have to do a lot of work. Does that make sense? Sorry. Everybody good? Okay, any questions about just kind of that overview? Okay, so I do want to go through the syllabus. So give me a second and let me get that pulled up and let's share it. You guys should have access to the syllabus in Google Drive. And actually, let's just do it that way. So we'll go share Google Drive. Okay, so if you guys, hang on one second. Okay, man, what is it sharing for you guys? Nope. Sorry. Hang on one sec. Okay, are you guys seeing my Google Drive? Is that what it says at the top of the screen? Okay, just making sure. Okay, so if you guys want, it's your call, but you do need to access Google Drive in some way. There are apps on basically any smartphone. There's apps on any tablet, so iPad, Android tablet, whatever, and pretty much any laptop or PC. There's an app for this that you can download, or you can access this by going to drive.google.com. I've shared the Google Drive with all of you guys that are in the class as of like an hour ago. So you should have access to this. And the way my app works, I'm on a MacBook, but you go in and it just pulls up folders like normal. And I think that's how the PC apps are. And I think that's how, I think that's pretty much how all the apps are. And if you go into Google, the shared drives, you should see this one, the Summer B 2020 Math 156 Doug. And when you're in there, then you should see this list of folders. And you may have to go manually update that because I've been doing a lot of updating this morning. So these are the folders you should see. And I think most of them are pretty full. Actually, at this point, they weren't last night. But if you go into course information, that's where you should see the syllabus. And you should see week 1 assignment. And so I think you guys are still seeing Google Drive. So let me switch the sharing to the actual syllabus and we'll talk about that. But that Google Drive is where you'll access pretty much everything for the course. So any assignments, any handouts, just about everything's going to be put in there. The exception might be a test or a quiz, and then we'll talk about at that time how you would access that. But let's go through the syllabus real quick. So man, I have 2 rules that actually did not make it on the syllabus or anything you've gotten so far that you need to be aware of. So 2 rules real important for my class that we'll just kind of state out loud, and then please follow them. The first rule is that you have to call me Doug and not Mr. Squire or Dr. Squire or anything like that. So I go by Doug, so please call me that. The second thing is that if you are in a situation where we're in a live meeting and you share your camera, which you should do, I'd much rather see you than just stare at a blank screen. But if you are in that situation, you are absolutely not allowed to wear anything representing the University of Pittsburgh, the University of Texas, or the University of Oklahoma. If you do, I'll kick you out of the meeting. So please don't do that. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So I don't like offensive things like that in our meetings. So please call me Doug, and please don't wear offensive clothing like Pitt. All right. Any questions about that? All right. So the syllabus, though, has these rules at the top. So Math 156, Summer B 2020. My name's Doug Squire. This is my email address. You should have gotten an email from me. And unless for some reason the university changes security settings, my Zoom meeting ID will always be this. And unless there's some sort of security change, the password will stay what I sent you guys. What was it? Summer B20, I think, something like that. And so I will keep that the same unless some update goes through and they make us change it. And if they do, I'll let you guys know that. Sound good? Everybody good with that? Okay. All right, so course description, you can kind of read that. So it picks up where Calc 1 leaves off. I actually don't know, and I'll actually ask this. How many of you guys did do U substitution? So like in Math 154, do they do what U sub as part of that? They do? Okay, in 155, do they do U substitution? I don't think so. I think they do it in 154 for some reason. They don't in 155. So anyway, so we pick up with antiderivatives. So we'll review basic antiderivatives. Actually, the assignment today, you'll review Riemann sums, but then we'll move quickly past Riemann sums. We'll go into basic antiderivatives, and then the first official new topic for Calc 2 is U sub. So U sub is not officially part of Calc 1 at WVU, but I think 154 for whatever reason does cover it. So anyway, if you've already had use of that part will be somewhat review, but we'll get into much more complicated versions of that by the end of this week. And so the level of those that we'll get to are more complicated than what you did in Calc 1, even if you have covered use of. Then we'll go into applications of integrals, so like area and volume mainly, but we'll also talk about average value and arc length. Then we'll go into more techniques of integrals, then sequence series, power series, and parametric and polar curves. That is a ton of material for a normal semester. It's even more for 6 weeks. The textbook is the same as for Calc 1. I will never, ever say that you need to go read this in the textbook, not once. And so it is your call as to whether you think it's a worthwhile investment. If you want formal definitions for everything, then you are welcome to use the textbook to get those. So when you watch my videos, sometimes I'll give a formal definition, but a lot of times I won't. A lot of times I'll give you an informal definition and say, if you want to see a formal definition, then talk to me, or you can look at the formal definition that's given in the book. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so if you want the textbook for extra problems, if you want the textbook to read for formal definitions or for different ways to approach an example, you're welcome to use that. Like I said, though, I will never refer you to the textbook and say, please read this. Does that make sense? I will also never say, please do section 6.2, numbers 1 through 10. So your call on that. I am not using WebAssign in this class, so I think other Calc 2 classes are. I'm not using WebAssign, so you are not required to purchase WebAssign. If you already have it, then that's okay. That's a good way to access the textbook. There also may be some practice problems on there. If you like WebAssign, you're welcome to use it, but I am not going to require WebAssign for my class this summer. I do recommend that you have access to the textbook in some form. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I think we're probably not supposed to say that if you haven't already bought the textbook, I maybe wouldn't spend $100 on that. Okay. I'd try to find a different way to access the textbook if you can do that. Everybody clear? Okay. Okay, remote course delivery. So courses delivered entirely in a remote learning environment. So this is kind of what we already talked about. You are required to check your mix and Google Hangouts messages very frequently, or at least once per day. So like if I do send something on Hangouts, you're responsible for that. So like if I say, hey guys, the deadline for this changed to Thursday and that's in Hangouts, you are expected to know that. And like, that's not an excuse for handing something in late. Like I said, I try to be pretty laid back. It's a pretty small class. And so, we'll be pretty informal, but like if I say, okay, midterm is Friday and I put that in Hangouts, but it's not in an email, you still are expected to know that. Does that make sense? All right. So you do have to know that stuff. You have to read announcements carefully. You're responsible for understanding policies explained in emails and in messages on Hangouts. Course materials will be delivered via Google Drive, and this can be accessed for free using Gmail. All right. Any questions about that stuff? So big things are Google Hangouts, Google Drive, and then eCampus will be used mostly for grades. But other than that, we probably won't use eCampus a lot. It'll be Google Hangouts, Google Drive, and then we'll talk about CrowdMark in a minute. You guys good? Okay, time zone. So everything's gonna be Eastern time. Just curious, is anyone not in the Eastern time zone? That's completely fine if you're not, but I'm just wondering, are you guys all in Eastern time zone right now? Okay, sweet. That makes it easier. If you're not in the Eastern time zone, that's completely fine. Or if you're traveling, that's completely fine. Just be cognizant of that. Man, be cognizant of that. Times that I give will always be Eastern time. And so if you're in a different time zone, make sure you're adjusting for that. The websites are not always consistent as to whether they adjust the deadlines for that. So like CrowdMark, I'm not sure whether they do, and eCampus might, and CrowdMark might not. And so just make sure you know that every time that I'm giving you is Eastern time. If you're in the Eastern time zone, it's not going to matter. But if you do leave, then that might affect some stuff. Online proctoring. So there are 2 exams that will require online proctoring through what's called Examity. So we'll have a midterm and a final exam. The Examity requires a laptop or desktop computer, meaning you cannot use Examity from an iPad. It requires a laptop or desktop computer with a compatible webcam and continuous internet connection. All right, so you have to be able to take the exam like in a separate room by yourself. and with no interruptions, meaning you got to be able to sit there for 2 hours with nobody coming in and out of the room without you getting up to go to the bathroom or something like that. And so we'll talk about that closer to the exam. We'll get more details then. Examity sets the price, but it's usually around like $15 to $20 per exam. And so I'm guessing around $40 total for the 2 exams, but also I'm not trying to make you buy the textbook. Does that make sense? Is that fair? If you have trouble with that and that's gonna be too much money, let me know and we'll try to work something out. But that's about usually what people end up paying. I think it'll end up being a little less than 40 total, but it's about that. Okay, questions? Okay, Examity is pretty easy to use, but you do need a webcam in order to do that. It does not have to be external, so it can be just like the one built into the top of your laptop. That's fine. Okay, technology. So you do have to have reliable internet, and you have to have the ability to watch videos hosted on YouTube. So all the videos for course content, I post them to YouTube, so you'll watch them there. You have to be able to upload pictures of assignments and scrap work to CrowdMark. And so actually, we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to send an email about it, but what I'd like you guys to do is get a PDF scanner app. There are some free options that are really good. CrowdMark works much more easily with PDFs. And when you take an exam, you're going to be required to make one PDF of your entire exam. And so we'll talk more about that later. But there's a couple of apps that are free. I think PDF Scanner, Tiny Scanner and Cam Scanner are the 2 most common, or the 2 that I know the most about. If you download those to your phone, they'll just basically let you take 5 pictures in a row and it'll put it into one PDF, and you got to be able to upload that to CrowdMark. So I want us to try that for the first homework assignment and try to get used to doing it as PDFs rather than pictures, because that tends to work a lot easier for CrowdMark. You can use pictures for CrowdMark, but for tests, we're going to have to do PDF. So I want to get in the habit of doing that. Does that make sense? All right. You have to be able to take exams on computer in private rooms, secure continuous internet connection, and you can read about this. You can't. So there were some of this language seems kind of harsh and mean, and I'm not trying to be, but there were a couple issues last term, not in my class, luckily, but in a couple of the calculus classes with academic integrity, and all of a sudden power went out 5 questions into the exam, and that might happen once, but not 6 times in the same summer. And so anyway, the math department's kind of saying, look, you have to crack down and make sure this is a secure, legitimate exam. And so this underlying statement, you're responsible for making sure you have the required technology and capability to access and use all required online sites and apps with a live continuous internet connection. Connectivity issues are subject to academic integrity sanctions. Again, as long as you're not doing anything wrong, it's nothing to worry about, but you can't have 6 power outages through the summer. Does that make sense? Is that fair to everybody? All right. All right, Zoom. So we're going to do office hours on this. I'll hold review sessions on this, and I'll hold live meetings on Zoom. Meeting ID is this. Password is summer20 unless something changes, or summer B20 unless something changes. And then Google Hangouts. So we talked about all that. All right, so that's kind of the delivery of the course. Any questions? I know that's a lot of information. You guys good? If you do have a question, just unmute yourself and it's completely fine. All right, so evaluation. So course grade is based on multiple forms of assessment. 30% of the grade will be homework, quizzes, participation, and then you'll have 2 exams. So you'll have a midterm on Friday of week 3, and you'll have a final exam on Friday of the last week, so Friday week 6. And so 30% for homework, quizzes, participation, 30% for midterm, 40% for final exam, and that's the grade scale. 90 is an A, 80 is a B, 70 is a C, and so on. All right. Homework and quizzes. So there'll be a bunch of homework, and we'll go through the schedule and see how that works in a minute. Deadlines will be announced via email or Hangouts or on the schedule. You'll submit them via CrowdMark. And I guess I just it says instructions will be given during the first week. So I just gave you those instructions. Some quizzes will be submitted in groups, and we'll create Google Hangout groups on Wednesday. So like I said, this is a small class, but what I'm hoping is that we'll have 3 or 4 groups of 3, 4, or 5 people in each group. So your group should have 3, 4, or 5 people. I will be happy to assign those completely at random. That's fine with me. But and I'm just picking these 2 names because you're the first 2 on my screen. But like Anthony and Olivia, if you 2 are friends and want to be in the same group, just let me know that between now and Wednesday, and I'll be happy to accommodate that. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, if Anthony wants to be in Olivia's group, but Olivia doesn't want to be in Anthony's group, then let me know that, and then it'll be at random, and it'll just be a flip of the coin. Does that everybody understand? All right. But if you have a preference for group, let me know. I'll try to accommodate any preferences. I won't assign groups until Wednesday because people can still add and drop the class until tomorrow night. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Any questions? But your group, once your group's formed, that'll be your group for the whole summer. We'll create a chat on Hangouts. I'll be in that chat with you. But you can use that chat to ask each other questions, to work together on homework. And then when you're doing group quizzes, you should be using that chat in order to do them online like this. Does that make sense? Okay, questions? All right, so you'll use your Google Hangout group to complete those quizzes. So all of that stuff together, all your homework, all your quizzes, participation and stuff, all of that is 30% of your grade. Though there are 2 exams in the course, so the times are already set. So midterm is Friday from 1 to 3. And when it says 1 to 3, you know, plan to sign on around 12:45, and then just to be safe, plan to go to about 3:30, just in case it takes a couple minutes to submit everything. But 1 to 3, the midterm's actually only going to be an hour and a half for the exam itself. But the 2 hours will give you some extra time. The final is Friday, August 7th from 1 to 3, and that one is actually 2 hours. So you might need to plan until 3:30 just to get everything uploaded. Proctoring through Examity will be required for each of those, and they'll be handwritten and submitted through Cloudmark. You guys can read about the rest of the stuff. It is very important. I'm just not going to go through it verbally. Any questions about the syllabus? You guys clear? Feel free to ask. All right. I want to go through the schedule this week and kind of talk about how that works. And I think it just switched to that. Is that right? Are you guys seeing schedule assignments? Somebody say yes. You guys are? Okay, cool. Okay. So you will get one of these each week. I post this on Google Hangouts, or I'm sorry, on Google Drive under course information. And I try to be incredibly organized, but every now and then I notice like that I didn't change this until this morning to say July 1st, it still said June something. And so sometimes I'll make quick updates and then just re-upload to Google Drive. So just refresh it every now and then. And if there's a huge change that really affects stuff, I'll let everybody know over Hangouts. Does that make sense? Okay, but this is a PDF that'll show up in Google Drive. And so this will tell you what to do when. And it's more detailed the first week than it is for the rest of the summer, just because we're getting used to everything. But I'm trying to color code it. And so anything in red indicates videos that you need to watch. Now, there's no way for me to make you sit and watch videos, or I guess there is a way. There are classes that do that, but I'm not setting it up where it's going to track that you were on there for 20 minutes to watch a 20-minute video. This is going to be on you. And so today you should watch video 1 and video 2, and they're on YouTube. And I'm going to show you that site in just a second, just to make sure you know how to get to everything. But when you watch the videos, again, like I said, last semester, people either did great or completely bombed. And the people who did great, what they did is they would watch the videos. And if it's a 25-minute video, like if you're watching TV, like Friends, I sit and watch Friends at all times. And so I'll watch a 25-minute Friends episode in 25 minutes. Does that make sense? You just set it, have it on the background. I can work and do that. That is not how people who do well in online classes watch the videos. Okay, so if it's a 25-minute video, that should be taking you 45 minutes to an hour to watch. You should be pausing it. You should be rewinding and watching parts over again. If I say, try this example and try it before I show you the solution, do that. Stop the video, work the example yourself, and then watch me do it. If you aren't following well enough to do that, then watch me do it once and then go back and do it yourself before you move on. Does that make sense? Okay, so there's some things that really suck about online classes, and one of them is that you have to watch the video and there's no interaction between me and you. But the advantage of the online video is that you can watch it at your own pace. So like you can't say Doug went too fast, because you can pause it and rewatch what I'm saying. And then if you do have a question, just ask me, shoot me a text on Hangouts, or come to office hours that afternoon or the next day, and I'll be happy to go through it with you more slowly or in a different way. But you really have to take advantage of that, because we're not in class where you can ask me a question directly while you're watching the video. So please pause, rewatch stuff. If you don't understand something, then make a note of that. When you're doing the homework, if I've given you the solutions to all of them, which is likely, if you can't figure out how to do problem 5, then feel free to go ahead and use my solution to get the answer to that, but make a note that you didn't actually know how to do that problem, and come figure that out with me later. Does that make sense to everybody? So please keep track and make sure you genuinely understand what's going on, because getting the homework points is not going to be good enough to pass the class. 70% of your grade is the exams. If you don't know how to do the stuff for the exams, you're not going to pass. Does that make sense? Everybody clear? Okay. So anyway, the way this is set up is the red stuff is videos. So YouTube videos, you definitely need to watch those 2 today. Google Drive, we've already talked about that at length. Google Hangouts, we've also talked about that at length. Homework assignment for tonight. So assignments that you have to hand in on CrowdMark, I'm going to put in blue. And so the homework assignment is velocity and integrals. And because this would normally actually be due tomorrow, but because add drop isn't until tomorrow night, it doesn't end until tomorrow night, this is due Wednesday. I would go ahead and do it. But it's due Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. And then I try to remember to tell you where to find these. So the handout is on Google Drive, Unit 1, Folder 1. Okay, and so you go in Google Drive and find it. There's a PDF of that. This is one I don't give you the solutions to. So you do submit your work on CrowdMark. It says available Wednesday. That's actually available now. So you can go into CrowdMark now. I think it emailed you guys. Did it do that already? Yeah, I think it emailed you the assignment already. So you go ahead and do that. Now, that handout is 4 pages and has a ton of problems. I don't want you to do them all. So the only ones on this homework you need to do are the table on page 1, problems 1 through 4, the table on page 3, and the problems 10 through 13. So only those are required. You don't need to submit the rest of it. You are welcome to work together. You're welcome to ask me questions, but you do need to submit your own work. So like if the next 2 people on my list happen to be Ezra and Matt. So if Ezra and Matt, you're working together, that's completely fine. But Ezra, your handwriting cannot be exactly the same as Matt's in the same format. Does that make sense? So you have to do your own work. All right, so you guys are welcome to work together, but you have to hit in your own stuff. So anyway, anytime an assignment's in blue, you do have to submit that in CrowdMark. I try to always put the due date every now and then, because I'm using a lot of the same stuff from last session. If it says it's due June 15th, send me a text message and say, hey, Doug, June 15th was 3 weeks ago. When's it actually due? And I'll go fix it. Does that make sense? Okay, but this one's actually due July 1st at 11:59 p.m. And then this is how this will normally look. So starting tomorrow, you have these 2 assignments. Now, when I break it down like assignment 1, assignment 2, normally that means in a normal semester, this would be Tuesday and this would be Wednesday, meaning you have to understand this, not just have barely watched it before you move on to this. Does that make sense? So normally that's set up where I expect that you kind of get this before we move on to this. So anyway, Tuesday's assignment, you're watching Unit 1 Video 3. There's an assignment sheet. That one's due Wednesday at CrowdMark. I think it has not emailed you this, but it'll email you it tonight at midnight. And so it'll email you that. Then that one is in Unit 1 Folder 2 and due Wednesday. And okay, and then this kind of moves on to the next stuff. So just as a heads up, so red is videos, blue is stuff you have to hand in on CrowdMark, purple is stuff that you really need to do. It is homework, but I'm not collecting it. And that doesn't mean it's less important. It may mean that instead of collecting this because you have the solutions, I'm going to give you your grade on the quiz that's based on the same material. But you really got to do that stuff. Does that make sense? Okay, so assignments in purple, very important to complete, but not to be submitted on CrowdMark. So anyway, that's Wednesdays. Thursday's your first group quiz. We'll talk more about that before then. You'll have all weekend to submit the group quiz, but you are expected to do that one in groups, and we'll talk about that. Or we can talk about it now if you have a question, but if not, I'll talk more about that later. Friday, since the 4th of July is Saturday, the university decided we would celebrate that on Friday and take the day off. So Friday, you guys don't have anything official unless you want to work on the quiz Friday, but you have from Thursday to Monday to do that for this quiz. All right, any questions? Sorry, I keep talking and I would like you guys to ask if you have them. Everybody's good so far? Okay. All right. Man, what else do I want to show you? I want to show you eCampus real quick. So let's do that. Okay. So if you go into eCampus, I think this is what you'll see. This says student preview, so I would assume that means it's about what you guys see. Obviously, you can click the syllabus there. That's more for official purposes. So the syllabus is there. We just went through it. If you go to the side menu, this is where everything is. Course information probably will end up with just the syllabus in there. CrowdMark is where you access assignments. So you can go through the email link or you can go in through the links here. So I'll just kind of add to this list all summer. So the one for today's here and then the next two are here. And then videos, you click there and it takes you to the YouTube channel. And so Doug's math videos, and it takes you directly to playlists, which is the best place to access the videos. If you want to subscribe to it, it's fine. I don't make any money from this, so I don't care if you subscribe. But if you want to subscribe, that's fine. Or if you want to bookmark it, that's fine. There will be a few things that'll be private videos. And if most of the videos are completely public, then that's fine. But every now and then there'll be one that has a little bit higher security. And if there is one that has a little higher security, then you need to be logged into your Mix account on Gmail or on YouTube. Does that make sense? Most of the time it doesn't matter, but if they're private videos, then you need to be on your Mix account because that's the one I would share it with. But anyway, when you go into playlists, unfortunately, there's no way for me to organize these other than by date. So you have to find the playlist that you want. So Calculus 2 Online Unit 1 is where the first set of videos is. And so you just click on that. And then let's not hear me talk. But the videos are over here. And so the schedule always refers to the videos like this, Unit 1, Video 1, or Unit 1, Video 2. And so you just click them. Like I said, the first one's like 20 minutes. I try to keep them to a half hour or less. There's some later that are a little bit longer, but I try to keep them to a half hour or less when possible. But you should see those videos. As far as the course order, we don't go all of Unit 1 and then all of Unit 2. Unit 1 and Unit 2 kind of get mixed together. And so I'll keep you on track of where those are. But anyway, this is where you access the videos. You should be able to access this from a phone, from a tablet, from a computer, basically anything. Okay. Okay, so that is eCampus. Now, as far as grades, I will post those to eCampus, but you guys access those through my grades on eCampus, I believe, and I have no way to see that as an instructor. So grades will get posted to eCampus, and then you check them however you check them. If you're not sure how to do that, we can both go look for a help file on how to check your grades on eCampus. But most of us, I think, probably know how to do that. If you don't, let me know, and I'll try to find out. Does that make sense? Okay. Done with that. Questions? Please unmute yourself so I stop talking for a little bit. Questions? You guys are good? Let me make sure I've got everybody checked off that actually came to this meeting. So we got Anthony in here. We got Ezra in here. And if I'm saying your name wrong, tell me. Jacob, Matt, Nabras, is that right? I know you, and I can't remember how I say your name. Am I saying your name right? I'm going to go with yes then. All right, and I think that's it. And Olivia, my bad. Olivia, you're on here. All right, sweet. Okay, that's all I've got. So the main thing today is to go watch those two videos. Get a cam scanner or a PDF scanner for your phone. Please don't pay anything for that. So cam scanner or Tiny Scanner, those are both free. But what you want to do for this first homework is make one PDF for the whole homework. I just want us to experiment with that. So see what I want you to be able to do, and let me type that up officially, and I'll actually send this in an email probably. But what I want you to do for the first homework, and it's, yeah, there we go. You do not have to print it. Okay, so you are not in this class required to print anything. If you want to print things, you are welcome to. One thing I did forget to tell you, exams will be open note, open book. Now, that's good and bad. The good thing about that is obviously you get to use your notes in your book. The bad thing about that is it makes the time limit a little bit tougher. So like, you still have to finish in 90 minutes for the midterm or 2 hours for the final. And so you can't be looking through pages and pages of notes. You have to be really organized. And so the only thing is you can't have any electronic notes. So you need to have them on paper. So I'm trying to let you know that now so that if you want to print things, then print them. If not, you may want to start writing things, write notes when you're taking the video, and keep those in an organized fashion where you can easily find stuff during exams. Does that make sense? Okay.
Are we allowed to like use a calculator, like scientific
You are not.
calculator?
No, I'm glad you asked that. And I think that's a different policy from Calc 1. Calc 2 never allows calculators. So for no exams will you be allowed to use a calculator. Now on the homework and quizzes, every quiz maybe not, but homework, if you use a calculator for computation purposes, that's fine. Does that make sense? But on exams, no calculators at all.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And that's a Calc 2 policy. So no calculators on exams, but you can have anything you want written out. So you can pre-write formulas. You can organize it however you want to. When I say open note, open book, that does include examples. So if you want to have examples written out, or if you want to print my solutions and have those, that's fine. You just cannot access them on a computer or a phone or a tablet. You have to have them printed or written out. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm telling you that now so you can kind of be organized. But anyway, velocity and integrals homework, please submit as one PDF. So if you get Tiny Scanner and Cam Scanner, either of those, I believe those are both free on Android and iPhone. I think. If I'm wrong, then don't pay for it, okay? I think they both have subscription options that I do not want you to pay for. But what you need is you need the ability to scan multiple pages into one PDF and to upload the PDF from your phone to CrowdMark. Now, I'm going to let you guys experiment with that and figure out the best way to do that on this velocity and integrals homework. And if you come up with, hey, Cam Scanner won't let you do this without paying $5, then text that to the group and we'll try to figure out what the best way to do that is. Last semester, we didn't require PDFs. CrowdMark's way easier with PDFs. And so if we can do this, I would really like us to get this to work, but it's the first time we require PDFs. So we're trying to figure this out together, but I don't want you to have to pay for the app. So, if you paid $1 already, okay, fine, but don't pay something new for this class. Let me know what works for free, but I think we can get this to work using either of those. Or if you find another app that's better, that's completely fine. Does that make sense to everybody? Everybody clear? Okay, and when you do find a good method that works, let us know. But I think both of those will work pretty well. I was messing with it a little bit. The problem is I think I paid for Tiny Scanner a while ago. I think I paid $3 or something, and now I have access to some premium feature. So I don't know exactly what's free and what's not. So anyway, let me know. Let's figure it out, but don't pay anything. Okay, when you do figure it out, text the group and let us know what works. But let's try to get that for the velocity and integrals homework just so we can get it to work, and then we'll try to start doing that in the future. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, that's all I got. I will wait until you guys all sign out. So if you have a question, just stick around and unmute yourself. If not, I will see you later.